Welcome to Sci-Fi Verse. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos, and enjoy the listening. In the vastness of space, the human exploratory ship Eureka hovered above an uncharted planet, its sleek hull gleaming under the starlight like a lone sentinel. The crew held onto a cautious optimism, knowing this mission could be the breakthrough they'd been waiting for, a chance to establish first contact with an advanced alien civilization that could redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. Captain Evelyn Grant paced the bridge, her crisp uniform only partially concealing the tension in her movements. She was a woman of iron resolve, but even she couldn't suppress the nervous energy humming beneath her calm exterior. Her fingers drummed lightly on the console rail, a subtle outlet for the anticipation building among her crew. The Eureka had detected unusual energy signatures emanating from beneath the planet's surface, complex patterns that hinted at not just intelligent life, but a civilization with technological prowess far beyond humanity's reach. Lieutenant Jamal Singh, stationed at the communications console, leaned forward with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Captain, we're receiving a response to our transmission," he announced, his voice taut with anticipation. The crew held their collective breath as the main screen flickered, then stabilized into the image of a tall, slender alien with smooth, metallic gray skin. The being's cold, dark eyes exuded intelligence tempered by an unmistakable disdain. When it spoke, its voice was sharp, each word slicing through the air like the crack of a whip, precise, unfeeling, and thoroughly confident. "I am Verin of the Astranis Collective," it said in flawless English, the cadence unnervingly smooth, as if it had studied human communication for ages. "Your species is primitive to the point of irrelevance. State your purpose before we determine whether you are worth engaging or eliminating." Captain Grant straightened, masking her unease with practiced poise. She knew this exchange would set the tone for everything that followed. "We come in peace, Verin of Astranis," she replied with measured calm. "We seek knowledge and understanding. Our mission is one of mutual discovery. We wish to learn from your civilization, just as we hope to share our own advancements." Verin's lipless mouth curled into a sneer, as if the very notion of humans offering anything of value was laughable. "Your kind presumes much," he mocked, his voice dripping with condescension. "We have traversed the stars for millennia, mastering sciences and technologies far beyond your comprehension. Your attempts at technology are but crude imitations, childish constructs that mimic greatness without understanding it." Singh's hands tightened into fists, the tension on the bridge palpable. Grant noticed the ripple of indignation across her crew but remained composed. "We recognize our limitations," she replied evenly. "But progress is made through exchange, even between civilizations at different stages of development. We're willing to demonstrate our capabilities, should you be open to reciprocation." A glint of curiosity sparked in Verin's eyes, a flicker of interest beneath the contempt. A challenge, he mused, as if the idea intrigued him more than he expected. "Very well, human. I shall humor you. Prepare to witness the vast gulf between our knowledge and your crude toys." The screen went dark as the transmission cut off abruptly. The bridge fell into silence, the tension hanging like a storm cloud. Captain Grant exhaled slowly, then turned to Dr. Samantha Reyes, the ship's chief engineer. Reyes was known for her relentless curiosity and sharp intellect, a scientist who thrived under pressure and loved proving doubters wrong. "We've got a lot riding on this," Sam Grant said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "Whatever they throw at us, we need to be ready." Reyes's lips quirked into a confident grin, her eyes flashing with determination. "Let's make them regret underestimating us." Chapter 2: The First Test. The following day, a sleek, black craft from the Astranis descended gracefully through the atmosphere, settling a kilometer away from the Eureka on the planet's barren surface. The vessel shimmered with pulsating symbols that seemed to shift and writhe, as though alive. It exuded an eerie, otherworldly presence that sent an involuntary shiver through the human team as they approached the rendezvous point. Captain Grant led her team across the rocky terrain, flanked by Dr. Reyes and Lieutenant Singh. Every step felt heavy with the weight of the encounter. The two groups faced each other, separated by a stretch of dust and stone, the air thick with tension and unspoken challenge. Verin stepped forward, flanked by 5 other Astranis, their expressions cold and inscrutable. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Since you insist on embarrassing yourselves, we will begin with a demonstration of what you call technology. We propose a contest simple enough for even your minds to grasp. You are to analyze a data stream and extract useful information faster than we can." Dr. Reyes raised an eyebrow, the faintest smirk tugging at her lips. Data processing? That's your challenge. Do not be so quick to dismiss what you cannot comprehend, Verin retorted, his words laced with arrogance. The stream we provide is encoded using methods far beyond your understanding. The challenge is not merely one of speed, but of insight, decoding and synthesizing what is meaningful from the chaos. Grant gave Reyes a slight nod, signaling her readiness. We accept. Verin gestured, and one of his scientists produced a small sphere that hovered in midair, projecting a stream of light. The data will be fed directly into your ship's systems. You have 1 hour. Let us see how long it takes before your primitive computers melt under the strain. Back aboard the Eureka, Reyes and her team sprang into action. Streams of alien code scrolled across the screens in rapid, pulsing patterns, an intricate web of shifting algorithms and cryptic symbols. The Eureka's AI struggled to keep pace, the strain evident as it processed calculations at the edge of its capacity. Damn, this is some kind of quantum encryption, Reyes muttered, fingers flying across her console as she dissected the problem. They've layered temporal shifts, recursive masking, and even neural net mimicking. It's designed to overwhelm and mislead. Singh leaned closer, his brow furrowed with concern. Are we in over our heads? Reyes's eyes gleamed with determination. Not even close. We've got tricks they don't know about. The key isn't brute force, it's recognizing patterns they think are hidden. We don't play by their rules. The team worked with frantic precision, recalculating, reprogramming, and experimenting with unorthodox methods. As the clock ticked down, Reyes initiated a daring move. She abandoned conventional decryption techniques, instead feeding the data through a linguistic probability matrix combined with quantum state shifts. It was a risky, unconventional approach, but it paid off. The screens stabilized and coherent information flowed into the displays. With seconds to spare, the humans cracked the code. The team erupted into cheers, exchanging high fives as the data resolved into actionable intelligence. Against all odds, they had done it. Outside, Verin and his team awaited them with expressions carefully controlled, though the tension in the air was palpable. When the humans presented their results, Verin's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the decoded data. For the first time, a flicker of disbelief crossed his face, quickly masked, but not before it was noticed by the others. You managed to extract this much, Verin asked, though his tone was more strained than he intended. How? It wasn't easy, Reyes replied with a casual shrug, though her pride was evident. Your encryption is impressive, but we found patterns in the noise. Once we cracked the underlying logic, the rest fell into place. The other Astranis exchanged uneasy glances. They hadn't expected this level of competence, let alone parity. Verin's pride wouldn't let him fully acknowledge it, but the truth was undeniable. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were caught off guard. Impressive, Verin finally said, though the word was laced with bitterness. But this was a trivial exercise, a child's game. The next test will show just how far out of your depth you truly are. With a sharp gesture, Verin turned and strode away, his entourage following in eerie unison. As they departed, Captain Grant caught the subtle tension among the Astranis, a crack in their facade that hinted at a deeper concern. They weren't as invincible as they pretended to be. Chapter 3: Raising the Stakes. The following day, Verin and the Astranis returned, but this time they brought something far more menacing, a large, hovering apparatus crackling with energy. The device floated a meter above the ground, its surface constantly shifting and reconfiguring as if it were alive. The design was so alien it seemed to defy conventional physics, bending light and space in ways that were almost painful to look at. Verin's confidence was back, his smirk tinged with a hint of sadism. Since you have shown a glimmer of competence, we shall escalate. This device is a multiphasic energy converter far beyond anything you humans could dream of constructing. Your challenge is to replicate its functionality with whatever crude tools you possess. Dr. Reyes studied the alien device with critical eyes, her mind racing with calculations. You want us to build an equivalent energy converter? That's not exactly a fair comparison. Of course it isn't, Verin replied, the mockery in his voice cutting deep. It is like comparing the mewling of an infant to the symphony of a master. But go ahead, show us what your primitive science can manage. Reyes turned to Captain Grant, her expression resolute. This is going to take some serious improvisation. We'll need to rethink everything from scratch. Grant nodded, her trust in Reyes unwavering. I believe in you. Do what you need to. For hours, Reyes and her team worked in the ship's workshop, disassembling components, sketching ideas and scrapping concepts as quickly as they formed. The workshop buzzed with frenetic energy as they pushed past failures, recalculating and reconfiguring at every turn. This wasn't just about constructing a machine, it was about proving humanity's ingenuity in the face of impossible odds. Eventually, they realized that directly replicating the alien technology was beyond their reach. They lacked the materials and the precise understanding of its principles, but they didn't need an exact copy, they needed something that worked. Reyes devised a hybrid solution, fusing human engineering principles with creative workarounds. The result was a lattice-based resonator that could modulate energy frequencies using feedback loops and synthetic crystalline structures. It wasn't elegant, and it certainly wasn't sleek, but it worked. When the team activated the converter, a beam of coherent energy shot out, cycling through various wavelengths with remarkable precision. When the humans presented their creation, Verin's expression darkened, the confident sneer slipping away as he struggled to hide his unease. He could no longer dismiss their efforts as mere tinkering. This abomination achieves the task, but it is a crude and unstable mockery of true science. Reyes met his gaze without blinking. It's not about elegance, it's about results. Verin's voice grew cold, his arrogance cutting deeper to compensate. You fail to grasp the essence of true advancement, he hissed. You stumble toward solutions without understanding the underlying beauty. Our technology is not just function, it is art, perfected over millennia. You humans are like children, scrawling on walls and calling it genius. Reyes's expression was steely, her defiance unwavering. Maybe. But when it comes to real problems, results matter more than style. The other Astranis shifted uncomfortably. They were beginning to see that the gap between the species wasn't as wide as they had assumed. Verin's arrogance held firm, but doubt had taken root in the minds of his peers. You have survived these trials, Verin conceded, though his tone was laced with bitterness, but only by the skin of your teeth. The next challenge will be your undoing. We shall see if your brute force methods can match the elegance of true intellect. With that, the Astranis withdrew once more, leaving the humans to prepare for whatever came next. The stakes were higher than ever, and the crew of the Eureka could feel the weight of the impending challenge. They had proven their resilience, but they knew the true test was yet to come. Chapter 4: A Clash of Paradigms. Days passed, and the tension aboard the Eureka grew heavier with each hour. The Astranis were clearly rattled, their confidence shaken by the humans' unexpected successes. The upcoming test was shrouded in secrecy. Both sides understood that this final challenge would be decisive, but neither knew exactly what the other had in store. When Verin returned, his demeanor was more guarded, his arrogance tempered by caution. He was flanked by his fellow scientists, their expressions cold and calculating. The usual condescension was still there, but it was tinged with wariness. This time they weren't underestimating the humans, they were preparing for a genuine battle of wits. Verin's voice was less mocking, more measured as he addressed the Eureka's crew. We grow weary of these games. It is time to test the limits of your so-called technology in a way that leaves no doubt as to the superiority of the Astranis. With a wave of his hand, a holographic display materialized in the air, projecting a massive structure, a complex web of energy conduits, neural interfaces, and micro-singularities. The design was so alien it appeared almost organic, pulsating with a subtle, rhythmic pulse, as if it were alive and thinking on its own. This is the Astranis mind matrix, Verin said with a note of reverence. It is capable of harnessing collective thought, allowing us to interface directly with quantum realities. It is not a machine, it is consciousness itself, manifested in technological form. Your challenge, humans, is simple: prove that your crude technology can surpass this. If only in some small way. Captain Grant's eyes widened as she processed the magnitude of what they were up against. You want us to outperform your entire species' collective intelligence? Not all of us, Verin replied coolly. Just a small subset of our minds will participate. But it will be more than enough to demonstrate your inferiority. Dr. Reyes gathered her team back aboard the Eureka, brainstorming strategies as they faced the daunting task ahead. It quickly became clear that direct competition was impossible. The mind matrix was a fusion of organic intelligence and machine learning on a scale that defied comprehension. Instead, Reyes proposed finding an angle the Astranis might overlook, a way to use human ingenuity to outthink what was essentially a superorganism. We can't outcompute them, Reyes said, her brow furrowed in concentration, and we can't match their raw processing power. But we have one advantage: they're overconfident in their perfection. If we can introduce a problem they can't anticipate, we might force a mistake. The crew devised a series of scenarios based on unpredictable variables patterns that were deliberately chaotic, drawing from fields like cognitive psychology, emergent behavior, and even abstract art. The goal was to confront the mind matrix with something it couldn't simply analyze and solve through brute logic, something that required lateral thinking, intuition, and creativity. The test began, and as data streams flowed between the two sides, the mind matrix reacted with breathtaking speed, solving problems with flawless efficiency. But when it encountered the more abstract challenges, its responses grew erratic. The carefully tuned algorithms struggled to adapt to the deliberate chaos introduced by the humans. Verin's calm facade began to crack as the Astranis wrestled with sequences they couldn't decode. "This is absurd," Verin snapped, frustration seeping into his voice. "You present gibberish and call it innovation." Reyes stepped forward, her eyes locked on his. "Not gibberish creativity. Progress doesn't always follow a straight path. Your system is designed for perfection, but perfection isn't always the answer." The other Astranis exchanged uneasy glances. For the first time, they were faced with a challenge that could not be met by calculation alone. The realization hit hard they might possess superior technology, but they lacked the adaptability and unpredictability that defined human ingenuity. Verin's pride was visibly wounded. Enough of this nonsense. The final test will be one of raw power. Let us see if your feeble tools can withstand the might of true science. He turned sharply, his team following in tense silence. The humans were left to prepare for a final confrontation that would determine whether their ingenuity could truly stand against the overwhelming power of the Astranis. The rocky plains outside the Eureka had been transformed into a battleground. On one end, the Astranis machines stood in rigid formation, a row of sleek, black constructs humming with ominous energy. Tendrils of electricity arsed around them, warping the space around them with faint distortions that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The machines exuded an aura of precision and power, every angle and surface meticulously engineered for maximum efficiency. Opposite them, the humans were assembling their own devices, a patchwork of emitters, projectors, and experimental weaponry. In stark contrast to the polished elegance of the Astranis technology, the human setup was raw, unrefined, and bristling with improvised solutions. Yet it held a different kind of strength, the strength of adaptability and creative problem-solving. Captain Grant stood at the center, eyes scanning the field with grim determination. Every instinct told her this final test was a trap, a challenge designed to expose humanity's vulnerabilities. But she also knew it was their best chance to prove they couldn't be dismissed. Verin's voice echoed across the field, dripping with condescension. "This is the final test, humans. We will pit our technology against yours in a direct contest of power and resilience. Your objective is simple: survive." The air around the Astranis machines began to ripple as they activated, generating an energy field that warped space-time itself. The ground beneath them twisted, reality bending under the weight of forces that humanity could scarcely comprehend. The Astranis were no longer just showcasing advanced technology, they were wielding power that seemed almost supernatural. Dr. Reyes and her team raced to bring their countermeasures online. Their strategy was unconventional. Rather than matching the Astranis in brute strength, they aimed to disrupt the delicate balance of their systems. They had designed an array of frequency modulators and harmonic destabilizers, specifically engineered to interfere with the exotic fields the Astranis were generating. It was a high-risk, high-reward gamble, and failure would mean certain defeat. "Hold steady," Captain Grant ordered, her voice firm but edged with tension. "We don't need to overpower them, we just need to outlast them." Verin raised a hand, and the Astranis machines unleashed their assault. Blinding beams of energy lanced out in jagged arcs, tearing across the landscape with explosive force. The ground trembled as massive bursts of energy collided with the humans' defenses, sending up plumes of dust and debris. The air crackled with raw power as the human devices activated, generating counterfields that caused the Astranis' energy to scatter and warp. For a moment, it seemed as though the defenses would hold. The harmonic destabilizers hummed at peak intensity, sending out waves of interference that fractured the precision of the Astranis assault. But the strain was enormous. Reyes could see the readings spike dangerously as the devices struggled to maintain coherence under the overwhelming pressure. "They're pushing too hard," Lieutenant Singh shouted over the rising noise, his voice strained with tension. Sparks flew from one of the modulators, sending a shower of blue-white light cascading across the field. "We can't sustain this much longer," yelled one of the engineers, panic creeping into her voice as warning lights flashed across her console. Reyes's mind raced as she recalculated. We'll have to amplify the signal, she said, more to herself than anyone else. If we can shift their energy fields out of phase, we might destabilize the entire setup. Are you insane? We'll blow ourselves up if we push it any further, another engineer protested, his eyes wide with fear. Reyes's expression hardened with resolve. Then we don't push it, we outthink it. She grabbed a portable console and began rerouting power from the Eureka's auxiliary systems, feeding it directly into the destabilizers. At the same time, she adjusted the modulation frequencies in real time, fine-tuning the signal to target weak points in the Astranis fields. It was a delicate balance. One wrong move and the entire system could implode. Meanwhile, the Astranis pressed their advantage. Verin's expression was one of cold satisfaction as he watched the humans' defenses flicker and sputter. Your resistance is admirable, but ultimately futile, he taunted, his voice carrying a note of cruel amusement. We will simply overwhelm you, as we have done to countless lesser species. But as the Astranis intensified their assault, something unexpected began to happen. The feedback from Reyes's modified system started to interfere with the very fabric of the energy fields the Astranis relied on. A resonant frequency built up, echoing back into the Astranis machines and causing subtle but significant disruptions in their outputs. Verin's confident smirk faltered as his technology began to glitch and misfire. The once smooth and controlled energy beams crackled erratically, tearing at the environment in unpredictable ways. Spatial distortions rippled outward from the epicenter of the battle, twisting the landscape into surreal, impossible shapes. What is this? Verin snarled, his tone laced with disbelief. His gaze darted across his displays as he tried to comprehend what was happening. The elegant precision of Astranis technology was unraveling in the face of chaotic interference that defied logic. Reyes's voice rang out over the din, sharp with determination. It's working. We're introducing destructive interference, they're losing stability. But the situation was far from stable. Both sides were teetering on the edge of disaster. The feedback loops were generating distortions that neither the humans nor the Astranis fully understood. The sky darkened as spatial anomalies rippled across the battlefield, the air thick with the scent of ozone. Reality itself seemed to be buckling under the strain, threatening to tear apart at the seams. Verin's expression twisted into a snarl of desperation. He could see that his carefully constructed strategy was falling apart, but his pride wouldn't allow him to retreat. Astranis do not yield in the face of lesser beings. He roared, his voice laced with fury as he activated a final override on his machines. The devices surged with power, pushing beyond their safety limits. The resulting energy spike tore a rift in space-time, a swirling vortex of unstable reality that expanded rapidly, threatening to consume everything in its path. Get down, Captain Grant shouted as the vortex grew, its edges crackling with raw, destructive energy. Dr. Reyes acted on pure instinct. She slammed her hand onto the emergency shutdown control, initiating a rapid collapse of the interference pattern. The Eureka's systems groaned under the sudden shift in power flow, lights flickering ominously as energy was diverted to critical stabilizers. The vortex began to implode, shrinking into a pinpoint of seething energy before collapsing with a deafening crack. For a moment, everything was still. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then the dust settled, and the battlefield was eerily silent. Both the human and Astranis machines lay inert, their power exhausted. The air shimmered with residual energy, but the immediate threat had passed. Captain Grant cautiously rose to her feet, her eyes scanning the area for signs of movement. The Astranis were still standing, though their arrogance had been replaced with stunned disbelief. Verin's face was a mask of conflicted emotions: anger, disbelief, and a grudging respect. He had expected an easy victory, but what he had witnessed was something far more unsettling. Humanity had not only withstood the assault but had nearly turned the Astranis' own power against them. We survived, Grant said, her voice steady as she addressed Verin. You claimed we would be undone by this test. It seems that once again you underestimated us. Verin's jaw tightened, his pride clearly wounded, but he couldn't deny the truth. You are. Resourceful, he admitted grudgingly. But this was not a true test of technological superiority. It was a crude brawl, nothing more. Real science is about mastery, not chaos. That's where you're wrong, Dr. Reyes interjected, her voice cool and precise. Real science is about adaptability, about finding solutions when things don't go according to plan. Your technology is impressive, but it's rigid, trapped in a mindset of perfection. We thrive in uncertainty, and that's why you couldn't break us. The other Astranis shifted uncomfortably, their expressions betraying doubt. They had seen enough to realize that their assumptions about humanity were deeply flawed. The gap between the species wasn't as wide as they had believed, and that realization gnawed at their collective pride. Verin's gaze hardened, though the hostility had faded, replaced by a cautious respect. Perhaps there is more to your species than I initially believed. Your methods are unorthodox but effective. It is an approach we have not considered in many cycles. Captain Grant nodded, recognizing the faint olive branch in Verin's words. We're open to collaboration, Verin. Maybe there's something both our species can gain from working together. Verin's expression remained guarded, but there was a glimmer of consideration behind his cold eyes. Perhaps. But do not mistake this for an admission of equality. We are still the superior civilization. However, I will acknowledge that your resilience is worthy of study. With that, Verin signaled for the Astranis to withdraw. Their ships lifted off in perfect formation, vanishing into the sky with a faint hum of energy. The humans watched them go, a mixture of relief and cautious optimism settling over the crew. Dr. Reyes let out a long breath and leaned against a console, exhaustion finally catching up with her. I thought they'd never leave. I don't know how much longer we could have held out. Grant placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We did what we had to, and we showed them that we're not to be dismissed. Whatever happens next, we've earned their respect at least a little. As the Eureka's crew began to regroup and assess the damage, they knew this wasn't the end. The Astranis would be back either as allies, rivals, or something in between. But for now, they had won a small but significant victory. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its technology, but in its ability to adapt, improvise, and think in ways that defied even the most advanced civilizations. Chapter 6: An Unexpected Threat. The following days aboard the Eureka were filled with frantic repairs and detailed analysis. Dr. Reyes and her team pored over the data gathered during the encounter, dissecting every variable and energy fluctuation for insights that could give them an edge in future confrontations. They were on the brink of something extraordinary, an understanding of the Astranis technology that could leapfrog humanity's technological development by decades. Captain Grant spent much of her time in the lab, collaborating with Reyes as they explored the potential applications of the data. There's something here, Reyes said one evening, her voice tinged with excitement as she displayed a holographic model of the energy fields from the battle. The spirals of light danced in chaotic but strangely harmonious patterns, like threads woven into an intricate tapestry. The Astranis are all about control and precision, Reyes explained, her eyes gleaming with discovery. But when their systems encountered our chaotic interference, we saw emergent patterns, new possibilities they didn't anticipate. These weren't just accidents, they're clues to a whole new way of manipulating quantum states. If we push this further, we could not only replicate some of their tech but actually improve on it. Grant's brow furrowed as she studied the model. You're saying their technology could be more versatile than even they realize. Exactly, Reyes replied with a grin. They're so obsessed with perfection that they've overlooked the potential for flexibility. If we explore these patterns, we could unlock capabilities that even the Astranis haven't considered. Grant smiled faintly, pride swelling in her chest. So the student becomes the teacher. I like where this is going. Before Reyes could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain, we've got something on sensors, came Lieutenant Singh's voice, tense with urgency. Grant's expression immediately hardened. We're on our way. The two of them hurried to the bridge, where Singh and the other crew members were clustered around the main display. The screen showed a dense cloud of energy signatures rapidly approaching from deep space. What are we looking at? Grant demanded. It's an unidentified fleet, Captain Singh replied grimly. And they're heading straight for us. Reyes squinted at the readings, her face tightening with concern. This energy signature, it's similar to the Astranis, but different. We're dealing with something new. Battle stations, Grant ordered. The crew snapped into action, weapons systems arming and shields powering up. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut as the unknown fleet drew closer. They're within communication range, Singh reported. Grant took a deep breath, her mind racing through possible scenarios. Open a channel. The screen flickered, and the image of an alien vessel filled the display. The ship was a massive construct of dark metal, adorned with glowing runes and strange organic tendrils that writhed like living creatures. Unlike the sleek elegance of the Astranis, this craft radiated raw power and menace, a design that seemed to revel in intimidation. A figure appeared on the screen, a towering being clad in intricately woven armor, its face obscured by a helmet that pulsed with deep red lights. When it spoke, its voice was low and resonant, vibrating through the air like the rumble of distant thunder. "I am Vox, War Commander of the Arcanis Dominion. You trespass in sovereign space. Surrender your vessel, or be annihilated." Grant's mind raced. This was an entirely new threat, one that could be even more dangerous than the Astranis. "We're not here to cause conflict," she said, choosing her words carefully. "We're explorers, and we're willing to negotiate." Vox's laughter was harsh and mechanical, laced with disdain. "Negotiation is weakness. Your species will either submit or be destroyed. The choice is yours." Reyes leaned closer to Grant and whispered urgently, "They've got a massive advantage in firepower. We can't take them head-on." Grant nodded slightly, her thoughts spinning through possible tactics. "What do you want? Why attack us?" "You possess technology that belongs to us," Vox growled, his eyes glowing brighter with malice. "The Astranis are our prey. We have hunted them across galaxies, and now they cower behind you. Stand aside, or be swept away in the tides of conquest." The pieces fell into place in Grant's mind. The Arcanis Dominion was hunting the Astranis. That explained why Verin had been so eager to leave after the last encounter. They weren't just embarrassed, they were running from something far more dangerous. "We're not allied with the Astranis," Grant said carefully. "But we won't just roll over for you either." Vox's voice rumbled with contempt. "Then you have chosen death." The connection cut off abruptly, and the fleet surged forward, weapons charging. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as the Eureka dove through space, narrowly dodging the first salvo of energy blasts. The Arcanis ships unleashed a relentless barrage of missiles and beams, overwhelming the ship's shields in a matter of seconds. "We can't hold them off," Singh shouted over the blaring alarms. "Their weapons are cutting through our defenses like paper." "Divert all power to the forward shields," Grant commanded, a wild plan forming in her mind. "We're going to try something risky." Reyes's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're not seriously thinking of ramming them?" Grant finished, a defiant grin tugging at her lips. "Not exactly, but we're going to make them think we are." The Eureka surged forward, accelerating directly toward the lead Arcanis vessel at full speed. The alien ships adjusted their formation, preparing to meet the charge with overwhelming firepower. But at the last moment, the Eureka veered sharply to the side, executing a tight barrel roll while launching a spread of decoy drones. The Arcanis ships took the bait, focusing their fire on the decoys with devastating precision. Explosions rippled across the void as the decoys were obliterated, creating a chaotic smokescreen that masked the Eureka's movements. Seizing the opportunity, the Eureka slipped through the gap in the formation, delivering a concentrated energy blast to the lead ship's exposed flank. The bridge shook violently as the Eureka's weapons struck home, breaching the alien ship's hull. But the retaliation was swift. One of the Arcanis vessels unleashed a shockwave that sent the Eureka spiraling out of control. "We're losing power," an engineer shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Main engines are offline." Grant gripped the console, fighting to stabilize the ship. "Reyes, get those engines back now." Before Reyes could respond, a familiar voice crackled through the comms, a voice that sent a chill down everyone's spine. "Humans, your struggle is futile." Verin's voice boomed across the speakers. His image appeared on the screen, showing the Astranis ship emerging from a cloaked position nearby. "What are they doing here?" Singh muttered in disbelief. Verin's expression was cold and calculating, his eyes glinting with hidden motives. "We have come to witness the inevitable. But perhaps we could offer assistance." Grant's eyes narrowed. "You want to help us now?" Verin's smile was thin and humorless. "Help is a strong word. Consider it a temporary alignment of interests. The Arcanis are a threat to both our species. You have something we lack: a flair for unpredictability. Together we might overcome this enemy." Reyes's skepticism was clear in her voice. "Why should we trust you? You tried to humiliate us just days ago." "Because survival takes precedence over pride," Verin replied smoothly. "The Arcanis Dominion is relentless. Alone, neither of us can defeat them. But if we combine our strengths, there is a chance." Grant weighed the risks. This alliance might be their only shot at survival, but Verin was not to be trusted. Still, the situation was dire, and time was running out. "All right, Verin," Grant said, her voice edged with warning. We'll work together, but know this: if you try to double-cross us, we'll make sure you go down with us." Verin's smile remained cold, but there was a flicker of respect in his gaze. "Agreed.